Yeah, and it is one of those things where, again, glare is never the objective that we're trying to produce, right? We want to have safety, we want to have comfort, we want to have visibility. Those are our objectives. And so, one of the obstacles is really that we're really trying to avoid a problem, because if we do something correctly, people aren't going to go, oh, this is so fantastic, there's no glare. They're going to focus on, the beauty or the comfort or the productivity or what it is that they have to do, the safety. They're not going to focus on whether it produces glare unless it happens to produce glare, right? So it's one of those things where the absence of glare just seems like, well, that's what we should have had to begin with. So doing it correctly, it's one of those things that may seem less rewarding because you really don't get, no one pats you on the back if you create a lighting installation that doesn't produce glare.
100%. Yeah.
But they will definitely complain if you produce one that does. And so, glare is one of those, it's like a double negative. You want to avoid the negative experience. And so that, in a sense, is its own barrier in thinking about it. We want to create beauty. We want to create comfort or productive environments, healthy environments. We don't try to create glaring, uncomfortable environments. We want to avoid those.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the AWA AGORA Show. Happy to say this is actually our 50th episode over the last 5 seasons, and this is our season 6 premiere. Very excited to have everybody here today. Title says it all, light matters, to myself, and I'm sure the guest as well, who is a very distinguished professor and researcher, John Bullough, who's actually the program director at the Light and Health Research Center at the Echon School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Justin. Glad to be here. A lot of the goal of this book was to try to pull all that information about what causes glare, what are the things that affect glare, and look at them not specifically if we're just dealing with a baseball field or a factory or a street. What are basically are there general principles that seem to allow us to predict when glare is going to be a problem? And can we come up with an integrated glare metric, right? That's really our objective in trying to do that. So we're trying to integrate what we know about glare into some framework that then would allow us to maybe not have, a half a dozen to a dozen different glare standards, but maybe one framework that we could use regardless of the situation we're trying to address. Headlight glare. That's one of the areas where whenever I tell anyone I work with lighting, it's almost inevitable that they're going to say, you got to do something about those bright headlights. They're really annoying. In fact, the government seems to agree. They actually asked the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, who is in charge of all of the headlight regulations for cars in the United States, to essentially write a report to Congress, so congressmen and women could figure out, well, what are the causes of glare? Why are they getting so many complaints? The government has gotten the most comments on from the public has been headlight glare. Typically, they might get 100 or 200 comments on a really hot topic for driving safety. They got over 5,000 comments from the public on headlight glare. So for an agency like the Department of Transportation, that tells them that this is a big deal. People are concerned about glare. Well, adaptive driving beams have really been one way that the automotive industry has taken advantage of solid state LED technology. So many headlights now have a matrix of LEDs where you can actually Each little source is illuminating a different section of the road, basically. And so you can turn each of those individual LEDs on and off or dim them to different intensity levels, more or less at will. And so these cars now have little cameras that can see the forward scene and actually reduce the intensity of the headlights just in the direction of the oncoming vehicle. So that vehicle, when they're seeing an adaptive beam, these three little video clips that you're looking at show the appearance of an oncoming high beam with those really bright headlights washing out the whole scene. You can also see the low beams that are much more pleasant to look at. But the image on the right shows an adaptive driving beam. And what it looks like essentially is low beam headlights. Well, the person in that vehicle actually has a much better view of the road because the only place that those headlights are shining a low intensity is toward the observer, toward the oncoming driver. Everywhere else on the road, those headlights are producing high beam levels of output. And so this is a system that, allows us to sort of break that trade-off between visibility and glare. We can have the forward visibility with our high beam headlights, but the oncoming drivers only see what looks like low beam headlights. And these technologies are robust. They've been on vehicles in most of the world for more than a decade. And it's just in this past February that the United States Department of Transportation has just issued a rule that will allow these headlights to be used here in the United States as well.
And what do you think in terms of the next step or the long term? Is it more research, more opportunities to get in front of certifying agencies, more data, more general public, like you were saying, the 5,000 for the National Transportation Board, to say, oh, we have all these people are actually giving us feedback. Is it like public outcry? Is it just more research? What do you think the next step to move this forward is?
Well, I think, the public has been pretty effective at getting at least some people to listen that let us know that, yeah, there is a problem with glare. It's not just one of those things where, okay, it's something we just have to live with if we're going to have electric lighting. It's not necessarily something we have to live with. And, I think it's a combination of those. I mean, one of the things that I'm grateful for the chance just to talk about this with your audience, to talk about, what glare control and thinking about the principles of glare can help us reduce the likelihood of, making people uncomfortable when it comes to lighting.
I think it comes back to the perfect title we had for the show, that light matters for most people when it's doing something wrong. That like you only really notice it when it's inconvenient to you, but when it's normal and it's not, not providing you with something you're not expecting, then you just move along with your life. It's you can have a beautiful space with beautiful lighting that someone in the profession like myself might notice and sort of be in awe of, and then somebody else just walks through it or goes past it or doesn't notice it at all because it's sort of it is what it is, and it doesn't sort of pop their eye because it's doing something that they weren't expecting.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the challenges of lighting. It's one of those things that it's ubiquitous. It's there whether it's good or bad, and we often don't really notice it, but it has such an impact on our lives.